This is the Millennials in Multifamily podcast, brought to you by Kronos Investment Partners. We interview industry experts to unlock key information that will help young professionals break into the multifamily world in order to create long-term and short-term wealth. If you enjoyed the show, please head over to iTunes and leave a rating and written review so we can reach more listeners.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Millennials in Multifamily podcast. I'm your host, John Stubber, with my co-host, Fritz Ritter, and today our guest is Powell Chee. Powell specializes in forming strategic partnerships that allow him to invest in any market at any time. From 2015 to 2018, he acquired over 100 units. But in 2019, he completely took off, becoming a general partner in over 900 units in Dallas, Atlanta, Phoenix, and San Antonio. He also founded a meetup group called Multifamily Masters, which may be the fastest growing multifamily meetup in the world. In just 2 years, they have grown from one single location in Los Angeles, California, to currently having over 60 locations, including chapters in Hong Kong and Dubai.
Powell Chee, thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of the Millennials and Multifamily podcast.
Absolutely.
Could you go over how you transitioned from a sales executive at a large company to a multifamily real estate investor and how you got started along that journey?
Yeah, sure. And it isn't really a transition, like a full transition, just so you know, because I still am a sales executive at a larger company, right? So, but I did get involved in multifamily about January 2017. Previous to that, I was in single family for a little bit. Had a couple single family houses, and then I transitioned pretty quickly in January 2017 to multifamily. Just thought that, you know what, I need to scale. Really came down to it. It's like I had a couple single families, and I was like, this isn't going to cut it. Like I need to go larger, and so that's when I got into multifamily.
That's awesome. Sorry, go ahead.
Could you talk about just some of the differences you immediately noticed as you transitioned from single family to multifamily, that scalability you were talking about?
Sure. So on my first single family, it ended up, I bought it at a really good price, and I bought it under market. I barely put any money into it, and it ended up being just super solid, really good deal. And I was super, pumped up, super excited to like, hey, let's go do more of this. But I realized I'm not going to be able to buy more of these. I pretty much just got lucky. And I was like, I'm not going to get lucky 50 more times in a row or 100 more times in a row. And so
right.
I just thought, you know what, I really need to, if I'm going to go up and try to scale and try to get more of these properties. And plus eventually I was just going to run out of money just doing it on my own. I was pretty close to there already. So I thought, you know what, I got to go out and get a larger property and look to get into apartments. And then I really saw the apartments, the power of apartments when you're really thinking about how you can force appreciation and things like that and buy undervalued. You can really, there's a lot of power behind what you can do with apartments.
Mm-hmm. So with the transition also, you're working your full-time job in the multifamily world. What types of challenges have those posed while trying to build this large multifamily business?
Sure. I'm sure, John, I'm sure like a lot of your listeners know, it really comes down to time, right? Mm-hmm. It comes down to it's tough with time, right? And I'm lucky in that my job allows me a lot of flexibility. So, when you're in sales and you're on the road, you can make calls, you can, send emails, you can do things that are kind of around what you have to do. You have a lot of window time, so you can, you make time in between to make those calls or get done what you need to get done. And not every job has that, but every profession has a certain strength, and that just happens to be the strength of my profession. Other people who are more tied to a desk and don't really have that flexibility, they probably have a little bit more, access to computers and analytical and can look at things online a lot faster than say I can with being on the road. So there's advantages and disadvantages to any profession, but it's really a matter of just time. You got to be able to put in that time. So you got to be able to do it early in the morning. You got to wake up early and do it in the morning. You got to do it later at night when you're, after you get off work and at lunchtime and breaks and anything like that.
Mm-hmm. It's about the grit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Got to keep going.
So you live in California now. you invest out of state, right? So how does that work for you? How have you been sourcing your deals out of state?
Yeah, when I found out, honestly, that you could invest out of state, it was a huge eye opener for me. I mean, back in the day, my dad had bought a couple houses. We live in California, so lives in the San Francisco Bay Area. I live in LA now. But growing up, we had a couple houses, and they had since appreciated. And I was thinking, how am I going to buy one of these houses? These houses cost $600,000, $700,000. Like, I don't have that kind of money. Like, I don't know how that's going to happen. And so I just kind of gave up on real estate. I was like, I can't do it, right? How am I going to do that, right? And then, after reading, listening to podcasts and hearing things, and then just started coming about that, hey, you can invest out of state. You don't have to invest inside of California next door to you. You don't have to go within 20 miles. You can actually go to some of these other states outside that you can find other deals. You can find deals that are, more inexpensive. And so that was a huge eye opener to me. And when it came down to it, at first it was really just, evaluating markets, trying to figure out which markets to go into, so that's kind of a whole process of itself. In the very beginning is evaluating the markets, checking for growth, rent growth, or population growth, job growth. You're looking for things like that. You're looking for affordability. And once you've kind of narrowed down a few markets, really you need to get out there and start calling people, start talking to people, and start talking to brokers or, property owners or property managers. You got to start talking to everybody. So that's really what I did.
So what are some ways that you, measure affordability for people?
It's affordability not only on the rent side. So you want to look at affordability on the property side too, right? Because, what you're purchasing, right? You want to think, okay, I tell other investors when they're starting out I think it's good to sort of set your budget. Like if you're going to do this by yourself, I mean, honestly, it's a little different if you have partners and you're bringing in capital and things like that. But if you're kind of starting out and you're doing this by yourself, you got to figure out, okay, how much money do I have to invest, right? And if you have that number in mind, whatever number that is, whether that's 10,000 or 50,000 or 100,000, whatever number that is, you can basically say, okay, I kind of run rough numbers and just say, that can be 30% of my overall purchase, my amount. So if I have 100,000, that can be 30% of what I'm going to buy. So I can buy like, a $300,000 house or something like that, because you're going to put 20% down. You're also going to put, you're going to have some CapEx in there. So just kind of rough numbers is kind of what I look at. So when I had my numbers, I could figure out, okay, now I can figure out what's affordable that I can go out and buy for me. Right. And that's a different number for everybody. So that's just kind of on the property side. But then you want to look at, okay, as far as affordability, like in terms of are the rents affordable according to, your medium household income, things like that. So you kind of run, just kind of look at like, what are the, affordability. There's also affordability. There's like websites you can look at what's the affordability of that particular city compared to the rest of the United States, compared to the state that it's in, and things like that. So those are in general, like, ways that you can research that. You got to figure that out.
So I think that's a really key piece of advice, though, is to set your budget. Otherwise, you're just going to go out and buy something and potentially look like a fool to the broker, or even lose your EMD money if you go under contract. I'm wondering, though, if you are raising capital and you're constantly raising and you have soft commits who you're not 100% sure are going to commit, but that you have money in the hopper, how would you adjust that strategy?
Yeah. So, I mean, in a general sense, you could just say, hey, I'm going to say that I've raised from the soft commits, whatever it is, 500,000, right? Just on a soft commit. And then you want to take maybe like 30% of that and consider like 30% of that is going to fall out. Mm-hmm. Right? So you really haven't raised 500. You're really like 30% 70% of that amount, right? So just take a number like that just to be conservative. But then also, what I did when I was starting out kind of raising capital and bringing these opportunities to people is that you really want to find out who's a real commit and who's just like, yeah, I'll invest with you. Sure. Sure. I'd love to invest. That's not really a commit. a person who is a little, you can get a little bit more information from them. Okay, well, how much would you invest in, right? One thing, just for when you're talking about raising capital real quick, one thing I always tell people is the question I always ask is, how much are you comfortable investing, right?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't put too much of a pressure on somebody like, well, how much money do you want to invest? Or how much money do you have? It's kind of like, whoa, slow down, man. I don't give you how much money I have and how much I want to invest, right? But if you just say, how much are you comfortable with? I might go 50,000. You're like, okay, sounds good. And then whatever they say, you just say, okay, no problem. That's good. Now you know. If they tell you 5,000, you're kind of like, okay, well, I mean, kind of put you on the back burner. But if they might tell you 200, and you're like, you say, okay, no big deal. So,
200,000.
Yeah. So, but it's an easy question. I think it's a good, helpful question. I think I tell to people that it doesn't put them at odds, because they're just like, what are you comfortable with? Okay, well, I'm comfortable with 150. Okay, sounds good. We can work with that.
So in your experience, how does someone usually react though when they're kind of on the fence about it, as opposed to you're like, no, I know, or I'm very confident this person is going to invest?
Well, if they start giving you like numbers of like, how much are they comfortable investing, or how much do they want to invest, right? You ask them things like, when is that money ready? Like, do you need to get it ready? Like, if I had a deal next week, would you be ready to invest? Those are questions that you'd want to ask, so that if they're serious. Because they're like, no, I gotta take a vacation. I gotta do this. And you're kind of like, that person's probably not that serious if they're really just worried about when they're going to take a vacation, whether or not they can invest. But if they're like, no, it's been sitting, I've had it for like 18 months, just kind of sitting. And you ask them about where they are in the process. Have you evaluated other deals? Have you invested in other deals? What are you looking for? You want to ask them, those kind of things. And then you get a sense of like, okay, they're pretty ready. And you also want to show them, like, if you had a deal in the past, or if you have a sample deal package or something like that, then that is very, very helpful to walk through with them and say, this is what a deal that looks like, what it looks like is a deal that I would do, that I'm going to do in the future, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you have one of those, or if you have something you've done in the past, then that's really helpful to just lay that out and say, what do you think? These are the numbers. These are the area. This is the type of property. This is the amount of investing that we're gonna raise capital. We're gonna have 10 investors, 20 investors, whatever it is that and you just kind of describe the project and ask them, are they ready? And then you should get a general sense of like, okay, I think that person's they're in.
Mm-hmm. I think that's awesome advice too. So I thank you for that.
Sure.
So I wanted to dive into your first deal and just the story behind that, and how you built your team and managed that while working what I'm assuming is a pretty highly demanding job.
Sure. High pressure job.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess first of all, maybe I should ask that. Do you want to talk about the single family? Or you want to talk about multifamily?
No, we'll go to the multifamily.
Okay, we'll go to the multifamily. No problem. So that one is a property that I have in Indianapolis. I still have that property, right? So I bought it in January 2017. So we're looking at, right about now, it's 3 years, a little more than 3 years right now. First I did is kind of, you got to get educated, right? You don't just go out and talk to a broker, then put an offer on something. So you got to get educated. You got to know how to underwrite deals, right? And you got to be good at it. You got to be like, you've got to have taken a lot of time to actually underwrite and get comfortable to the point where you actually start to see deals and start to sense that something is really good about this deal. And I really need to take a better look at it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You need to get to that point where you're there. And it takes, it can take a while. It can take 20, 50, 100 deals. But I mean, you're going to go through that anyway in like this kind of, this sort of market. You're going to go through 100 deals anyway. So you might as well start going through that analysis. So once I did that analysis, and then quickly, I was looking in 3 different markets, and I was okay with the 3 different markets. And for me, it was Indianapolis, Memphis, and Kansas City. And I was okay with any of them. And then I was looking at actual properties, right? Once I was looking at those properties, and really quickly, one came out in Indianapolis that I saw that I was like, I have never seen that one before. And I don't know if that's real. Like, it's not like anything that I had seen before. So I was like, I just don't know if this is right. So I mean, when you see something like that, the first thing you got to do is pick up the phone and call that broker, right? And like, is this deal, like, is this real? Like, is this, is this still being offered? And it was. And I think I was the second person to call that person. And I said, hey, just send me, your information, the T12, all the rent roll, the financials that you have. They hardly had anything. It was a big mess. And then I just said, just send it to me, whatever you got, and I'll get back to you ASAP. And so I got back to them, within 24 hours, and really quickly, it was just negotiation after that. And then we just locked it up. And that was probably, I don't know, I would say probably 3 or 4 days before I really locked it under contract. And I just, when you get to that point where you can understand your analysis and you can start to see this is going to be a good deal, it's very different than other ones. You need to jump on that right away. So that's what I did.
What was it about that deal that was so much different from everything else that you had underwritten so far?
Sure. I mean, first thing was like price point. I was like, wow, this price point for the amount of units, you get a general sense of like in this metro area, for like my budget at the time, I think I was looking at, I was like 600 to $1 million. That was kind of my range. I was like 600, more like 700 to $1 million. It was kind of like the range that I was looking at as far as like what I had, right? As far as what I talked about before about down payment and CapEx. And then, so I said, okay, well now I'm going to, you get a sense of like, well, the price per units around what's being sold, or, 30,000, 20,000 or whatever. It's kind of, you get a general sense of kind of where they are, the price and the age of the property, where it's located, things like that. Well, it would just happen to be that it was significantly lower price per door. Its age was significantly newer than everything that I had seen. Numbers wise, the area, I thought, oh, it's okay. It's not any better or worse than other places. But I had not seen anything that new. It was 1984, right? It was it was built in 1984. I hadn't seen anything in 1984 that was way down at that price point, per door, at least, and just overall. So I immediately right there just kind of thought, let me check more on this. I gotta check more on this property. And that's when I got all the financials and everything and started looking into it.
And did that raise any red flags for you that it was so much cheaper than everything else for the vintage?
Sure. I mean, raise red flags, but raise curiosity. I would say like red flags as in like, yes, you got to take a look at it and see why is it like this? What's the reason why it's like that? But raise curiosity more than red flags, because I want to find out if this actual property, like I want to make that call more than I want to worry about, maybe there's something wrong with it, or maybe there's, it's like, I just make that call and find out if it's available first, and then worry about that other stuff later.
And so you said the financials were a mess, right?
Oh yeah.
Right. So how did that change your underwriting as opposed to a property where, they had like professional bookkeeping and the records were really clean?
Yeah. So this was one of those, I would tell you, it wasn't necessarily a mess. Maybe that was the thing. It just wasn't there. Okay. So that's kind of like, that's what I sort of meant on that. But being not there, I had to go off of tax returns. I had to use the tax returns, right? Because those numbers were there and what was there. And I kind of had to, base it off of other just other properties that I'd seen in the market, what the average rents are. He kind of knew that. I already knew that they were a little bit under market from, at least from what I was looking at the tax returns, as well as what they were telling me. But I thought there was some room for rent growth. In terms of the expenses, I had to kind of ballpark a lot of those expenses, and kind of figure out what I think they were. And I had to use what just was very recent, like, so maybe the last month or two's numbers. I didn't have a whole year's numbers and everything like that. So, I mean, it set up some, so there's some difficulties in that, right? Obviously, because the other part is that the lender's going to be like, hey, well, what's going on with this, right? I don't have any numbers, right? So that part's, difficult. You got to wade through those waters too, right? And, I happened to get lucky on that one. But yeah, I was able to get a lender to finance that and everything.
So, Powell, what was your biggest challenge after you took over the building?
The whole idea of like running the building afterwards was really the big challenge, because honestly,
Right.
like, you're setting yourself up for like, I got to learn how to evaluate deals and evaluate markets and going through all these deals. And you don't spend that much time on really realizing like, okay, as an operator, what do you do? Like, what do you do after? What reports are you getting, or what are you supposed to get? And you're like, how are you supposed to communicate with the property manager? And, so it was a lot of learning on that side of things, and operations aren't necessarily like my forte. And so that was a lot of learning, like a lot of kind of like, okay, well, what about this? And, oh, I didn't even know about that. And, like working with the property manager and trying to figure out like budgets and projections and, how often things are going to get turned around, how, length of time before the units get turned, and construction, that kind of thing. So yeah, it was that part was, I would say, a big learning curve.
And so were you the only partner in that deal, or did you have a team of other partners to help out with that too?
That one was just me. So that one was just me. It was honestly, when I figured out like I want to go into multifamily, I didn't want to bring in any partners just yet. I really was just like, hey, I want to prove this, that either I fail or I succeed, but I want to do it on my own first. Mm-hmm. I mean, whether that's right or wrong, you don't have to do it that way. It's just that I felt like that's what I should do. And so that's what I did. I was just like, I'm just going to do it by myself. And, whether it's to blame or, to pat myself on the back or whatever, it was like, that's going to be just me, that's, it's going to be my bank account that really gets hurt or gets benefited from it. So.
Well, it definitely gives you the freedom to just kind of figure it out as you go along. When you have investors, you have a fiduciary responsibility to them.
You're right. It is. And, it is also limiting, right? Because like I said, I'm not necessarily like the operations person. That isn't how like my background of operations. Mm-hmm. So if you have somebody that is a partner that has a strong background in something else that other than what you do, that's a big benefit, because like you can kind of lean on them a little bit to be like, okay, that's what you do, right? Like, you got to, this is your part of the pie, right? You do it, right? So
here's the keys.
Yeah. So like that, there's definitely benefits to that, right? Because rarely is somebody an expert in all facets of multifamily, right? There's many facets. It's like a business, right? When you get to larger size business, it's hard to run every single thing in that business, right? And that's where you rely on partners and other people with their expertise. So I'm a big fan of partnering. That's pretty much all I do nowadays is, work with partners and things like that. But yeah.
So Powell, you've had this for about 3 years now. Is this something you underwrote as a forever investment, or do you eventually are going to exit it? And how have your projections been according to the years?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because that is something that I tell people nowadays, is that yes, I underwrote it as in like, I'm probably going to hold this thing forever, right? I'm going to hold it for 30 years. I'm going to pay off the loan. I'm going to keep this and everything like that. But honestly, now that I'm into it, it's like, no, the idea would probably be to sell within 5 years. Like, and I tell people, like, when you're starting out in your first deal, like, yes, you want to get this awesome deal. You want to get this great deal. It's like, yeah, I want to get this home run deal, and I'm going to be super stoked about it. But I would tell them to like, think of it as a 5-year exit, because sometimes when you're learning these things and you're getting into it and you're getting involved, it's maybe not your end goal, right? My end goal wasn't necessary to own a 40-unit building in Indianapolis. That isn't necessarily my end goal. I thought it was a little bit, but no, that isn't really the end goal. The end goal is to get a larger property, to sort of move up has been more my goal, right? So I would tell people to just be aware of that, just to have that exit strategy in mind, of say like a certain exit year, 5-year, 7-year exit, and use it as a stepping stone, because this can be a great stepping stone. And it really was a great stepping stone for me. But it's not where I want to be ultimately. Right. Mm-hmm. When your other questions, as far as like numbers wise, it's okay. It's not really that great. It's like I would say like barely, well, a little bit more than barely positive, right? So it's not like super great, but the amount that I've learned and the amount that I've been able to leverage for other partners because I've done something and now gotten involved with other things, it's just like I said, a stepping stone, propel you to get where you want to do. Take it as like, hey, this is a great investment. I really worked hard for it. It'll probably be a lot better once I exit, but as of right now, I wouldn't say it's like, super great or anything. Then just exit that property, move on, because all the other properties, that you're moving on to just happen to be better and better. And so that's what I would say.
So could you go into that a little bit more? How did doing that first property allow you to start to snowball into these other larger deals?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what happens is you start to meet people, right? Through, through partnerships, through meetups, through educational programs, through all different types of things. You start to meet people, right? You start to meet people who can potentially be a partner, could potentially help you out, or you like what they're doing, and you're pretty close to, say, their level. Pretty quickly, you can maybe start to gravitate with them and get to a bigger project. And so that's really what I did, is that I started meeting a ton of more people, and I started getting out there a lot more, and then found several different partners, found my own business partner who I do kind of everything with, me and my one business partner, but we partner with other groups, and we've been out there and partnered with other groups. And then you find that you're able to work with them on their projects, or take down a bigger project that you probably couldn't do as just, one or two people. And, having that background where you can say, hey, yeah, I have a property. I have a 40 unit property, and then I bought a 61, and then I did this, and then I did this. It's like they're like a lot more inclined to, hey, bring you on. Yeah, come on to our team. We can really use somebody like you. Come on, and we like you. I mean, that's one thing. You got to get to be friends with them. They like you, and they get onto their deal. So that's why I say it's a stepping stone. That deal was a stepping stone for what's propelled me to things that I'm doing more recently.
That's awesome. So could you tell us, how does it generally work when two different teams join up to take down a larger deal?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. So, in a general sense, I would say that there are, when you're looking at multifamily, there's generally three areas of responsibility, right? There's the acquisition side, which is the early on, right? So you're talking to brokers, putting the deal under contract, evaluating the deal, doing due diligence, putting up earnest money, all that kind of stuff, figuring out property management, all on the acquisition side, right? The middle side is really the capital side. Who's bringing in the money, right? So you potentially got to go out there and raise money, or you got to bring in partners. You got to do something to bring in the capital. The third part is the operations, is the asset management, right? And so what I tell people is that you want to get where you feel comfortable, or you want to understand where your strength is, right? Of those three, right? And you want to find people who are, doing something that's other than your strength, right? You don't want to all be doing the same, all have the same strength. So once you've got your strength and you know what your strength really is, then you could partner with different groups. So my strength really happens to be on the capital side, that my network is pretty strong right now. And I know a lot of people, a lot of people around. I run a pretty big meetup, and it's just, my network has grown. My business partner, his strength is the acquisition side. So together we're very strong on the acquisition and the capital side, but we're not really necessarily the asset manager operations teams. So we go out and find other people, other groups that we can work with, right? And we'll say, oh, hey, maybe we find a deal, maybe they find a deal, but if they find a deal, then we'll still underwrite it and do all of our underwriting, and then tell them about it, and then we'll get in on the acquisition side, just to help out, with evaluating the property management, evaluating the location, the neighborhood, what we think as far as projections. We'll help on the capital side, and then we'll try to help out as much as we can on the asset management side, right? And so really, I guess to answer your question is figuring out what you're strong at, approaching other groups and finding out what they're strong at and where you could add value in that, and say if you get a deal or you underwrite and you find a deal, then approaching them and saying, hey, would you be able to help us evaluate this deal? You like this deal, and would you be able to help us raise capital? And would you be able to help us or not help us on the asset management side of it? And really, you just kind of find where you can fit in with a group of other people that you like. So your partner, and then you find another partnership that you can work with and have complementary skill sets. Does that make sense, I guess?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's just filling out your team, and I guess filling out other roles with other teams too.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, it's not just one person who does the acquisition, right? There's several people that got to do the acquisition side of it, right? There's not just one person who's going to do the capital raise, and there's not just one person who's going to just decide everything on the asset management side. So there's several different roles inside of all of that, and whatever you can bring to another partnership, you can explain to them what you could do and how you can help them. That's going to be kind of like ways that you can find other partnerships that will bring you on.
Are you struggling to understand how to underwrite multifamily properties? Hi, I'm John Stober, and I completely understand your problem. I thought underwriting would come naturally to me due to my background in finance and accounting, but I quickly found out that there aren't a lot of resources that cover this subject. I had no idea whether what I was doing was right, wrong, or just original. I don't want you to have to pick up little nuggets here and there like I did. So I wrote an ebook called How to Analyze Big Apartment Buildings and Make Them Feel Small that puts together all the pieces of the puzzle. We're also giving away a deal analyzer with the ebook, and they're both completely free. Don't wait as long as I did to start chasing financial freedom. Go to bit.ly/underwriting ebook and get your free copy today.
And then, so you said you run a pretty big meetup. So how did that start, and how is that, besides just raising capital, how has that been instrumental in growing your business?
Sure. So the group is called Multifamily Masters, and I started it as a group that was, okay, so when I just purchased my 40-unit building, I was doing it all by myself, sitting in front of a computer, evaluating deals, calling brokers and everything. And I was like, I don't know anybody else that's doing this. I know there's podcasts and I know there's people that wrote books. I just don't know any of them, right? Mm-hmm. And I was like, I do not like this. This is not what I like to do. Like, if you're in sales, you probably like people and you probably want to hang out with people and laugh and joke and whatever. I was like, that's what I want to do. I don't want to sit in front of a computer and just look at numbers, and that's just not me. So I thought, I got to get out there and meet other people who are doing this. So I went around to a bunch of meetups. Nobody was doing what I wanted in terms of, nobody was doing a specifically multifamily one around here in LA. And nobody was doing a multifamily one that was buying stuff out of state. So there was ones that are multifamily that were here in LA, buying in LA. And I was like, I'm not going to buy here in LA. So nobody was doing what I did. So I created that group couple, like 2.5 years ago. Started with a tiny, like us meeting in a hotel lobby. And it was just like 8 of us, and, just kind of unstructured. And I was real nervous that nobody was going to show up. And I was like, oh man, this is kind of like, it's kind of weird. But quickly it grew to, I added 2 other chapters within 6 months. So I had 3 locations in LA. And then after that, a year later, I added, I think I added 6 more chapters in LA.
Wow.
So all of a sudden we had like almost 10, we had 9 chapters in LA. And then that same year, so that was just a year ago, it was May. So a little less than a year ago. And then about the summer of 2019, we added some leadership, we added some other partners involved, and I expanded it. And so after that, we've now gone nationwide, and we're actually global now. We have a couple that are in other countries. So we have like over 60 chapters, I guess, at this point, and a lot of members and everything. So it's certainly grown a lot farther beyond what I had really envisioned in the very beginning. But so the group's real big. But I mean, when you're talking about benefits of it, why do it and why go to these things, it's like, I met my business partner there. So my business partner who I work with, just me and him, he came to my meetup. That's who I met. There's other people in the group that they're business partners, and I know they're business partners because they came to the meetup. They met at the meetup. And then, obviously there's the sense of, you're going to be able to raise capital. You're going to be able to put yourself in front of a big group of people. Those are all significant benefits, but then you just start, you start hosting things. It's kind of like you guys, it's running a podcast. You're going to know people who are going to want to be associated with it, right? You're going to interview them. You're going to bring them to the meetup. You're going to bring them on your podcast and things like that. It's like that. Now you start to know industry experts. You start to know other syndicators. You start to know all these other people that are, in the game that you, and you're able to bring them some value. And so, your network just starts to really, really mushroom, really get big.
That is amazing. That it's
60 chapters.
Yeah, I know. We're still going too. We're going to keep going. So I like to say, I said we're the fastest growing one in the whole world. I truthfully don't know that, but I just like to say that. But, I'm gonna, it's like
we heard it first here.
Yeah, exactly.
So Powell, what do you think separates your group from other groups? Because I mean, I know there's tons of multifamily groups around here, but Multifamily Masters is definitely one that stands out. What do you think is different in your group?
Yeah, I mean, our people are awesome. Our people are so good. We're got great people that help run it, at all different levels, from our leadership teams to the people who are running the actual chapters all throughout the United States. And people are attracted to other people that they like, that they're like, oh, this is a cool person, right? And when you come to our events, you'll see that they're very much like a casual setting. It's really like the networking is very strong. We're there to educate people. It's not like we charge a lot of fees or anything. It's really kind of like family. We've brought a lot of people in who, that are just starting out, and we like to highlight, kind of what they're doing. We've also brought in people who are, big syndicators that have thousands of units where people can learn from. And it's really we're just there to educate people, bring people together as kind of a network. And when you're thinking about it from a larger, if you take a step back, you think about it, people from California, yes, they may want to invest in California. However, nowadays they can now see that, hey, there's a multifamily masters group in Phoenix. There's another multifamily masters group in New Orleans, in Dallas, all over the place. And they just think, you know what, I don't want to invest in LA, but I would want to invest in Phoenix, or I would want to invest in New Orleans. Now you have a connection. Now you have people that are running it there, and you could think like, okay, maybe I can ask that person, can they check out that property for me? And then now you're starting to form these partnerships with groups of people all over the place. And so if you think of it from a global perspective, there's people from all over the world just kind of thinking, I'd like to invest in the United States, but I don't know where. Oh, there's people in Tampa. I've heard of Tampa. I want to go to look at Tampa, and I have a connection with the people in Tampa. And now we're just kind of forming those bonds, right? Whereas before, it's a lot more of like, well, it's kind of like a wish. I would like to, but I don't know how to. But now we're starting to form those connections with people that if you want to go to North Carolina, you want to go to Raleigh, we have a chapter over there. You can meet with the chapter leaders. You can hear about people there and think about whether you want to invest over there. So it's good benefits on both ways.
Yeah, that's amazing. I didn't even think about that either, too. Just the relationships that you could build, really, like you said, around the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
So with and you guys, since you have like this franchise model, I'm also wondering if you have 60 meetups that are meeting once or twice a month, how do you find enough speakers for each event?
Yeah, so it is similar to, say, like a franchise model where, but we do give a lot of freedom to people. So branding is uniform and consistent, but the chapter leaders themselves have a lot of autonomy to do whatever they want, right? And so they have a lot of autonomy to say, I want to bring this speaker in, and they get to choose, right? Because the local market expert in insurance is not necessarily the same guy in California as the same guy that's, in Atlanta, Georgia, right? Mm-hmm. So, use your local market specialist, right? And then that's, so they have the ability to do that. If you have enough of a cluster, like in Southern California, we have enough of a cluster of strong chapters here, we can sometimes come together and share we have guest speakers who come and do series. So they'll come and speak at several different of our chapters, or we'll even have, we'll do a one-time event. So last year we did a one-time event in the summer. Plan to do it again this year, but with the way things are going right now, we're not really sure if we're going to be able to do it this summer. Mm-hmm. But you have enough of a cluster of where you can drive a lot of people to one meetup and have, just a summer event. We did have one in the holidays, this past holidays, where in LA, we had all the 10 chapters over here just kind of come together and have one meetup and gather like that. So there's a lot of benefits to it.
That's awesome. I was definitely going to bring up, like, how have your meetups changed now with everything being shut down? Have you guys gone virtual pretty much, or are you guys just kind of waiting it out?
Yeah, right now, the plan is to, we have the ability to go virtual. So we do things virtually right now anyway. Some of our meetups, most of them are in person, right? But we also, the Multifamily Masters as a group has a, what we call MFM Live. So Multifamily Masters Live, which is our once a month, we have a meetup with our whole community. So we have it globally, we put it on Zoom, and anybody can join it. And we have the topics, and then we have Q&A. And then we have some big names on there where people can really learn from other syndicators or other industry experts and things like that. And so we've already started doing that virtually. Now with things the way they are, we've had to cancel basically a lot or all of our meetups in person. Certainly all of them here in California have been canceled for right now. They'll start up again as soon as we're sort of through this virus thing. But we are also moving towards doing a lot more virtually. So next month we'll have one that's just going to be Southern California, all of Southern California, and we're going to have a speaker come, and then he'll be able to address all the chapters in Southern California. And so we plan to roll stuff like that out and continue to use the virtual world.
Yeah, now's the time to buy the Zoom stock.
Yeah, I've been hearing a lot of that. For sure.
So for those listeners who are thinking about starting a new meetup, what's like the number one tip you would give them to grow their membership base as quickly as possible?
Besides join Multifamily Masters and work with us.
They definitely could do that.
It certainly could. We got all kinds of people that ask us to all the time. So happy to help out that way. If not, if you're just going to do your own, you want to do your own thing, that's no problem. One thing is really, you got to be consistent, right? So you got to choose whatever it is, the first, second Wednesday of the month, every month, right? You got to be consistent. Your first couple ones are going to be, kind of tough. It's not, you might have 3 people that show up. You might have 1, you might have none. You might be lucky. And some of my chapters, they had like 50. And I was like, wow, I mean, that's awesome.
Good turnout.
But to help you get started is really, you need a partner, you need a business partner, right? And in that, it's really helpful because somebody can do some of the marketing for you. Somebody can, a big piece of it is you got to find a venue, right? You got to find a venue that will allow you to do it. And then you got to get some backup venues because you're not going to stay there. I'll tell you, you're not going to stay there forever. So finding a venue is super important. Finding a partner, I would say, is probably the next most important thing. Those are 2 things that once you get those 2 things, put it on meetup.com, put it on Eventbrite, put it on Facebook events, things like that. Get the word out there, and then just have it consistent. As long as you're consistent and you're just thinking about your audience, right? That's going to be, people will continue to come and see value in it, right? If they continue to see value in coming out there, they're going to continue to come, and more people will come.
Awesome. So you mentioned this earlier, we're dealing with the coronavirus right now. I wanted to ask, how is your company shifting its strategy right now? And are you still looking to acquire? Are you waiting to see what's happening in the market?
Yeah, I would say that right now we've put a pause on the acquiring. We're not necessarily acquiring right now. Now, that doesn't mean that we wouldn't underwrite and look, but we're not actively like pushing it to figure out what we like to get a property right now. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're a little bit of like ups and downs of hard to know what. I've told people this who are under contract right now and or purchasing right now. I was like, this should be a home run. Like this needs to be a home run, because these next couple months, April, May, June, if we go past that, July, you're going to have a hard time collecting. You're going to have to be working on all kinds of deals with your vendors, your bank, your utility company. You're going to have to work on all these deals. And if it's not a home run, it's not going to be worth it. You don't know when this is going to end, and you don't know when, things are going to like start to be good for you. So, when you're not able to evict for, I don't know, could be like 2 or 3 months, right? You could be in a tough position, right? You could have a lot of people that don't pay, and then you have to start evicting whenever this is done. But that doesn't mean you're going to be able to evict right away, because the backlog of the court system is going to be big. Everybody's going to be trying to evict it then. So that's another 2 months that you're going to have to wait and be sort of supporting this deal that shouldn't be razor thin at this point. And then, as things kind of shake out, so you're just kind of running into some real hurdles and obstacles right away. So my advice is, unless it's a home run deal, I would really probably stay away from it right now. So that's just my advice. There's probably other people that are like, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm going to get this deal and that deal and this deal and pick them all up, because nobody else is going to be buying. The other part of it too is, if you're evaluating the property on its NOI, right? The NOI is going to be changing really quickly here in April and May and things like that. So you're not evaluating on the NOI that it is currently. The NOI that was 12 months ago. And that just 2 weeks ago, things are very different than they are now. So if you're evaluating the NOI on what it was the past 12 months without thinking about what it actually is right now and what it's going to be definitely for the next three months, you're putting yourself in a pretty bad position here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely pretty hard to underwrite now. I was going to ask you, if you are underwriting deals now, how are you forecasting rent growth or anything like that? Because it's up in the air, right? So how would you be able to tell that it's a home run?
Yeah, it's one of those things. Like, if you're well, first of all, we're not doing a ton of evaluating deals right now, right? But if you are looking at things and you're saying, well, this is a good deal, I really like it. When I did my underwriting before, it needs to have $150 as the rent in rent growth, right, over the next, after we complete our capex. And if you're kind of like that, you can't really project that you're really going to hit that $150 in rent growth, and plus in the right time that you were projecting before, that's going to be really tough. So even to say, hey, we're going to project $100 in rent growth, I'll tell you right now, ask the syndicators, who have a lot of deals, are they projecting any rent growth right now on their properties? The answer is probably not. They're probably just trying to lease and trying to just collect rent.
Right.
You don't even know if you can collect rent. So much less try to push $150 onto people, because they also stop their capex right now, most of them, right? So if you're not improving the property, you know what I'm saying? You're just kind of running into a lot of these problems, right? So in other words, it has to be a huge home run in order to this. So any of this, to me, that like, hey, we need to hit this $150 in rent growth or something like that, to me, I'm like, that's a okay deal to begin with. That's not a home run deal to begin with. You need a home run deal to really do right now.
I think there's a lot of expenses you would have to increase too, like your advertising. Evictions could go up later in the year, and then obviously concessions would probably increase too. Yeah,
absolutely, all that.
Well, awesome. So I wanted to ask, where do you see your company going next? I know you've bought some pretty large assets in core markets. How do you continue to grow from here?
Yeah, so I guess, nowadays, in 2019, worked with a number of different partners, and we were able to take down some big properties in a number of different markets. Nowadays, me and my business partner, in terms of multifamily, I would say, again, we're putting this on pause right now, but where we were looking, I would say, if you asked me this a month ago, was we were actually downsizing a little bit of the size of apartments that we were going, so that we weren't taking on so many partners. Right? So we were more of like, it'd be me and my business partner and maybe a few people, and probably to JV some deals, smaller deals, 100 unit deals, to 150 unit deals, $5 million to $8 million purchase prices, not the 12 to 14 to $17 million purchase prices that we did with larger groups before. That, larger groups, larger partnerships, larger investor pool, that was kind of where we were pulling away from. We were looking a little bit more of like, let's do stuff that is more of smaller partnerships, smaller investor pool, potentially just a JV instead of even a syndication. Well, maybe just JV this, because what's happened more recently is that my network is growing, and it's continuing to grow and grow stronger and stronger. And I can probably find a small group of investors who want to get in on a deal as a JV deal rather than as a syndication. And so looking at doing smaller type of properties and ones that we would all be involved in. So that's, if you would ask me that, say a month ago, that's the strategy that we were heading towards.
Mm-hmm. And do you want 100 units just because it's cheaper and you can have a smaller pool, or do you see advantages to acquiring something smaller too, such as like less competition?
Yeah, I mean, yes, there would be less competition, but truthfully, in this market, when there was going to be competition no matter what, right? Mm-hmm. So whether you're going to buy 100 or a 200 or 250 or a 300, you're going to face competition no matter what. So it wasn't purely a competition thing. We do think that there is a little bit less, but it still has the economies of scale where it can support its own staff there, right? Mm-hmm. You don't need a large staff, but it can still support a staff there. It still can take economy, like it can still provide you the economies of scale of some of the larger ones, just not as much as the other ones. And I thought that it's something I could confidently do, right? And like when I went back, if I go back to the very beginning of when you set your budget and you know how much money you have and you know how much, then it can tell you how much of a property you can go after and purchase, you're a lot more confident. You're like, okay, if I have, $100,000, I know I can go buy this $300,000, fourplex or whatever it is, right? I know I can buy this. I know I can do it, right? But if you only have $100,000 and somebody comes to you with a $1 million property, you're kind of like, whoa, I don't know if I can do that. That's a little iffy, right? Right. And it's the same thing with this right now. It's like a $4 to $8 million property. You're looking at, say, maybe like a $1 to $3 million raise, just in terms of general terms. Mm-hmm. I'm confident that we can get that done. I'm confident that my network is strong enough that I can get that done. And if not, I know there are other ways of doing it, right? So because I'm confident that I can do that, rather than, hey, let's go after that $16 million property, that's a 280 unit property. Now I have to raise $6.5 million, $7 million. That's like, ooh, I don't know if I'm there yet. I don't know about doing that. I might have to bring in a lot more partners to do that. Mm-hmm. So it comes down to a confidence thing. Hey, we can do it. We're going to raise 2 to 3 million. Yeah, let's do it. We can do it for sure. So
makes total sense. So I think we're running up on time. I wanted to get over to our section we call the Fast Five. It's the same 5 questions we ask every guest who comes on our show. So if we're ready, we'll dig right into them.
Let's do it.
Okay. So if you had to start all over again and you were in your early 20s, what would you do?
I would love it, first of all. I wish I could do it in my early 20s. I thought about this. If you're in a place where you can house hack, I think that's a great way to go, to get started. That's what I think. And if you don't live in a place like where you can house hack, if you live in California, I would say, honestly, you might want to move to somewhere like Dallas or Austin. There's a lot of cool cities around. You don't need to live in LA. And if you're just going to live in, Phoenix or wherever, somewhere like that, and you can house hack, you can make it happen. To me, you got to do it. That's, I don't know. You're going to be way better off than I am at my age if you start out early. So I think that's the way to go.
Each of us have house hacked it, and awesome experience.
Yeah, very cool.
Definitely. So, Powell, how do you see young professionals adding the most value to experienced operators in this space?
What I've seen a lot is for me, it's marketing And it can be also with social media marketing. So yes, I can do it. I'm not that good at it. I don't have that much fun doing it. I didn't grow up doing it. With younger people are better at it, a lot more on their phone than I am, and they're faster at it. Truthfully, there's a lot of power in that. And if that's a way that you can start adding value to somebody that's a little older, then I would say go for it. If that's a way that you can start. If you're also good at marketing and you can get like, hey, I can help you with your email marketing. I can help you with your social media marketing. I can help you with your website and branding. That's also going to bring some value to them, no matter what, even if they're, because they're always looking to increase their investor pool. So they always want to have good marketing, right? So that's important. And then if you can get involved in the other side, if you can if you're really good at analyzing deals, help them analyze deals. If you're really good at finding deals, help them find deals. You can do that, those kind of things, or raise capital. I mean, those are great ways to do it. But I would say getting started like that is helpful.
So what's the biggest mistake you've made in your career, and how have you since adjusted your business?
I would say that, the biggest mistake that just kind of comes off the top of my head is the second single family house that I bought. I bought it in Memphis, and I still have that thing. And that thing is been a money pit the whole time, but I don't know that. I mean, I tried to move away from the single family. That's probably the best thing that I did at that point. Is just I moved away from single family. But yeah, it was one of those ones, I basically kind of bought turnkey. It didn't really turn out. Just had to sink more money into it. Mm-hmm. I'm still sinking money into it. It's like, oh man, when can I get rid of this thing? So that one is, not a good deal.
Been there.
Yep, yeah. Definitely been there.
Yeah.
So, Powell, what's been your favorite way to incorporate technology and social media into your business?
You know what I'll tell you with my favorite way is really what I'm doing kind of now too is I'm working with chatbots. I don't know, you guys know, like to kind of qualify a lot of what's, a lot of the people that you talk to. A great way to send people information. There's a lot of cool things of working with chatbots. So I've been doing that just sort of recently, and I've really been enjoying it, and been working with actually some other owners and things like that to help them out with, on chatbots and other businesses and everything like that. So that's been great. I've been enjoying that.
So wait, how exactly does that work? Is that like someone comes onto your Facebook page or your group and a bot automatically sends them the message?
Go to Multifamily Masters Facebook page and you'll be able to see it. Yeah, it's right there. No, it basically is what it is. You go to there, you click into the page, and then the bot will start, asking you like, hey, welcome. Are you here to see where our meetups are, or are you here to find out more information about the event that we're going to hold? Right. And then as you kind of click, you click what you want. It's usually multiple choice, and it'll walk you through, eventually it does things where you can set an appointment, or if you want to chat with any of the leaders live, you can do that, or you can even like buy tickets on there. It's like all kinds of stuff. And so we're putting like quizzes. So yeah, I mean, it's all kinds of like stuff, informational. It's good. So I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
I'm definitely going to reach out and learn about that.
Yeah, reach out to me, guys. I'll help you guys out. I'll build one for you guys and stuff.
And then the last question is, what book or books have most influenced you on your journey?
Oh, shoot. There's a lot of books. I would tell you the two that I've always endorsed to everybody. Honestly, the Rich Dad Poor Dad book, Robert Kiyosaki's book, awesome book. Read that early on when it came out. Mm-hmm. But that was probably like 2002 or something like that. But I had no idea, how am I going to do that here in California? Again, now it is possible to do that, and even if you live in California. But I would say that is a really influential book. The other book that I really like is Hal Elrod's The Miracle Morning, mm-hmm. or The Morning Miracle. I get them mixed up. I always say it backwards. The Miracle Morning. That book is awesome. And I've been doing the Miracle Morning for years now. Actually, it's coming up on 4 years now. And so, when just getting up early, I was not an early person. And now I get up early, not early, not super early, but I get up early enough to do my stuff and get it done every day. Right. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, it's great to have an early morning routine. and just helps you just, get things done throughout the day, be very, very productive, and feel very good kind of what the space you're in, and not feel like so stressed or so under pressure and things like that. Great book.
Well, awesome.
Love that book.
For sure.
Well, Powell, thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of the Millennials and Multifamily Podcast. What would be the best way for our listeners to get in touch with you?
Sure. You can just, I would say the best just to email me. It's powell.chee@gmail.com. Use that email. What's probably even better, honestly, is just if you go to Facebook and just either become one of my friends or just message me on Facebook. Like I said, I'm doing the chatbot thing all the time now, so I'm pretty much on Facebook and doing things on with the chatbots there. So you can go to my Facebook page, or you can message me there, and we'll get in contact from there.
And then what's the Multifamily Masters Facebook group called?
Yeah. So if you go to multifamilymasters.com, that will take you to our webpage. And if you search in the group, or if you just search in Facebook, Multifamily Masters and .com, you add the .com in there, that's our official page. So it can bring you to our Facebook page that will have the chatbot, or it'll bring you to our group where you can get inside our community, ask questions. We have like close to 4,000 people in there now.
Wow.
And our group's hoping to skyrocket that and, really get up to some big numbers. And in there, ask people, connect with people, talk to people, post things about what you're doing in there. It's a great community in there.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Powell.
Thank you.
Sure. Great to talk to you, John. Great to talk to you, Fritz.
Thank you for listening to the Millennials in Multifamily Podcast, brought to you by Kronos Investment Partners. If you enjoyed the show, please leave us a rating and a written review at iTunes so that we can connect with more people. Finally, head on over to kronosinvestmentpartners.com and sign up for our newsletter so you can stay updated on everything we're doing. If you're interested in partnering with us as we find new opportunities, you can also schedule a phone call with us under the Contact Us tab at kronosinvestmentpartners.com.